Good morning, everybody. This is Danny from Deep South Homestead. We have so many questions on our channel about what do we use to do what with? What tool is this? What tool is that? How do you do this? How do you do that? How come y'all can do this so fast? You know what I mean? And guys, I want to probably do a series of videos here just showing some of the different tools that it takes on a homestead to actually make things happen. Today we're going to start out with basically some hand tools. Now this is not all the hand tools that I have. This is just going to be a few hand tools that we're going to talk about today, and they're going to cover a lot of different areas on a homestead. Anything from bushes to gardening to whatever. And then next week we'll probably do some more videos on some more things on the homestead. Poor Candy out here, she just wants me to go back and refeed her again. This is morning on a homestead, the animals. Okay, the first thing we want to talk about is loppers. Now we have loppers here. I've got probably 5 different pairs of long handle loppers, different ones for different jobs, but loppers is something that you'll use frequently on a homestead. I have the handheld ones. I got probably any size you can imagine. I probably have 20 altogether. But you'll use them anywhere from pruning blackberries to pruning fruit trees to cutting down okra plants in the garden if you do. I mean, just anything like that. Loppers are a very handy thing to have on a homestead. Not just one pair, but multiple pairs. And I'm going to be showing some odd things. Now this is I call this my pole saw, because we do have the gas-powered ones and stuff like that, but we're talking about handheld tools in case you can't get any gas. How can I survive on my homestead? This is a hand-operated one. I made this handle. I found this one actually in a junk pile, and I don't have the rope on it right now. It has a rope on it, and right here there's a little area here that when I pull this down, it has a knife blade on it that can cut little small limbs off. But I mainly just use this one for reaching up, sawing off something. I've got it pretty sharp. I could have put a longer handle on it, but at the time I didn't really need it, you know, to be any longer. But a good handheld pole saw. Now I have the type that's like a knife you fold out and saw trees with. I have those. I got 2 or 3 different ones of them. Some of them for hunting, some of them for just carrying in my back pocket around the homestead when I'm pruning fruit trees and stuff. So this is another thing that is kind of an unusual item, but you do use it on a homestead. Now here's one a lot of you probably have never seen. This is called a pole peeler. Now this is a heavy duty one. This one here is made for actually taking barnacles off of a ship deck or on the sides of a ship. That's what I got this one for. But it can also be used for peeling trees. I do this a lot of times, like my cane, for instance, my cane pole, my gin pole that goes on my cane mill. You can take this thing and run down the bark on it, and it just takes a bark right off of it. And it's heavy. This thing probably weighs a good 10 pounds. I also use it in the construction business for taking up old tile on floors and stuff like that, or wood flooring that was glued down. I would just take this thing and go down through there and just, it really is a good heavy duty one. It's good 1/4 inch thick solid steel. It's got a good long handle so you don't have to bend your back over too much. Another kind of unusual tool to have on a homestead. Some of y'all may or may not know what these are, but this is called a claw. This thing right here, it's made for putting it down in the garden, like in the dirt. You stick this thing down. For people who can't bend over, you can stick this thing down, and I mean you can really tear up some ground in a raised bed or something like that. It really destroys your ground good. Softens it up. This is a tool, and it's adjustable right here. It's got several different adjustment heights for your height on how tall you are. Something good for somebody who might have some disabilities who can't bend over. You know, and it's good to prop up on. If you get tired, you know, you can hold yourself up on it, and you can use this in the garden. Really good for it. These are just a few of the unusual items that people don't think about a lot. Now, one thing on a homestead that I have is my old double bed axe here. This thing has been with me, I don't know, probably 40 years I've had this axe. I had to put a couple of handles in it. This one here looked like somebody besides me, it wasn't me, used it and missed the wood and busted out a piece of the handle on it here. But a good double bit axe. A lot of people like the single bit. My daddy raised me to use a double bit. One side stays really, really sharp. The other side, not so sharp at all. If you're working in a fence row or something, you take the side that's not so sharp. If you have to hit the wire with it or something, doesn't matter. The other side, once you get some bushes and get all the wire out of the way, you take the other side and whack something right off. A homestead is just not a homestead without a good double bit axe. Now, there are actually several different types of axes. You know, this here is a small one here. It's always good to have a small one with you, just a good hatchet, because you don't always need a big axe like that. Sometimes you just need a small hatchet to use. And we keep, I probably have, I can think right now, probably maybe 6 or 7 different style hatchets that I use for different projects. Some of them for splitting kindling, some of them for chopping bushes, some of them I take hunting with me, different things like that. I have just a multiple array of different types of hatchets that I use here on the homestead. One of the things that a lot of people don't like to use, and at my age I don't like to use it anymore, is a pick. But my friend, when the ground, if you've got rocks or clay or anything like that, and you need to dig a ditch and you need to break the ground up, you cannot beat a good heavy pick. Now this one here is probably 20 pounds. It's a little bit heavy for my age now, but when I was younger, this thing has been swung many a day, picking a water line or something like that. Even I've used it even picking in the garden before to break the soil up. So a good pick is good to have. And they do make several different styles of these. Some of them have a wide end on them. Some of them have just 2 points like this one. You can get them in all kinds of things. And guys, this is one of the things about going to an estate sale. A lot of times these older people that die off leave these estate sales, and people are able to pick up tools like this. Now some of mine actually came from estate sales that I got when I was way younger than what I am now. And I've had most of these tools for many, many years, probably some of them up to 30 years. I've had a lot of them. So these are not things I just accumulated overnight. Another thing on a homestead, this one here, this got spider webs on from sitting in my shop here. This is a sledgehammer. You cannot go wrong by owning a sledgehammer. This one here is a 15-pound one. I have a 15-pound one. I have a 10-pound one. I've got 5-pound ones. I've got 3-pound ones. I got 2-pound ones, 2.5-pound ones, 1-pound ones. They're all used. This one's got concrete all over it. This is the one in the construction business that I used to use for driving stakes around concrete slabs and stuff like that when we were building them. But homesteads, you're going to need a good sledgehammer. And I didn't think about it until just then about bringing out my wedges for busting firewood and stuff like that. A good maul and some good wedges for busting some blocks of wood that you can't bust in it with an axe is a must, because sometimes you have to have those. Now I do have just inside the door in there, I didn't think about bringing it out, I have a wood splitting maul that's got like a 5-pound head on it, I believe, that is really sharp and thick on one end. It's got a big hammer head on the other end for driving those wedges with. So that's another thing you might want to consider. Another unusual tool here is this one here. Now, a lot of people have not ever seen a tool like this. This tool here is made to roll in the dirt. When you roll it in like a raised bed that's soft, you roll this thing in the dirt. And boy, I mean, it breaks up the dirt like crazy. Literally pulverizes the dirt. I mean, it you can't beat it for pulverizing the dirt. These, we use them in the greenhouse down here. Whenever we do our beds in there, we'll come get them and we'll take them in there and we'll roll them in there, and we'll try to break up the dirt with them, because it really does do a fantastic job at breaking up the dirt. Now this here, this is simply just a little longleaf tree. I cut it down, hung it up, let it dry, It is as tall as I am, or a little bit taller maybe. And it's kind of tiny on one end, it's kind of big on the other end. I use this thing here for lots of things. If I go walking on my homestead, I turn it over, it becomes a staff for me to prop up on if I get tired. If I'm planting in the garden, I use a little small end to go along and I job my holes like that. I can plant. If I'm putting down a post and I need to tamp the dirt around it, I use this thing to tamp the dirt around the big end first. Then I flip it over, take the little end, and get it down really tight against everything. A good staff and stick like this is a necessity on a homestead. Now this is just a little longleaf pine that I cut down. It's very light. It's not heavy at all. But anyway, a good stick like this is a necessity on a homestead. Then we have another stick here. Any of y'all who've had my sweet potato manual know that this particular stick right here, I don't know if you can see it or not, but it's got a fork in the end of it. I went in the woods and hunted one of these up. I have several of them. It's not the only one I have. This one's made out of an old winter huckleberry. It's just the right length. When I'm planting sweet potatoes, I throw the draws down on the ground. I take this stick, push them right down in that soft dirt. The potato draw falls right in that fork like that, and I shove it down in there. This is in my sweet potato manual that I sell. It shows how to plant. You don't have to bend over. Makes planting in a field a whole lot easier. And it's just a little homemade tool there. Next, I have another homemade tool. I took an old shovel handle that the shovel had broke off on here, and I took an old piece off of a railroad cross tie thing that was in the woods there. I don't even actually know what you call this spike. It holds them in place though. And I actually drilled holes in it and bolted it to it. Now you look at it and you go, now what in the world would I want that for? But when it comes to planting in the garden, and you got raised beds or whatever, now I have more modern tools now for doing this that can do 3 or 4 rows at a time. But this one I can reach down in my beds like planting carrots or something like that. I can take this thing and I can go through the ground like this right here, and I can make me a nice little straight row like this, and I can move right over beside it, and I can make another little straight row. And plus it breaks up the ground good. And you can do that throughout the garden and make some really nice rows to plant with. Just a good homemade tool, just something for thought, not anything fancy. Some tools are tools of necessity. It's often been said that most inventions come from necessity. Okay guys, this here is what's called a cane stripper. We plant sugar cane here that we make our own syrup out of, and something like this is pretty necessary. You use it kind of like this. If you haven't watched our videos, and you reach up and you strip down the fodder up and down the cane like this with it, and it pulls it all off. Now you don't want to do that if you're saving the cane for seed or planting, because it destroys the eyes on the side of the cane. But this is another tool that we have. We sell the templates for this on our Etsy store. If you're interested in making one and putting your own handle on it and your own metal and everything, I've got the template there to show you how to actually make this. Now that's a tool that not many people will have, but some people do still raise sugar cane. This here is what's called a cane knife. We use these also. You can walk around through there. You hit the tops off of it when you cut, and it's got a hook on the other side. You can actually strip the fodder on it with that too. You can turn around, cut it off at the ground if you want to. We use it for sugar cane. Can be used for a lot of different things. It's got a really sharp blade on this side and a really sharp blade on this side. Can be used for a lot of different things on a homestead, but we use it mainly for cutting sugar cane with. Another thing, lots of people don't think about this. This is a tree dibbler. Now this is a commercial one. This one here is probably about, I don't know, it weighs around 10 pounds, I reckon, made out of solid steel iron, probably 1/2 inch thick plate steel right here. A good 3/4 inch heavy duty handles. You take this thing, you stick it in the ground, you put your foot on it, and you rock it back and forth like this. And the more you rock it, see, the deeper it goes. Now this is hard ground in front of my shop. And then you can pull it back like that, pick it up, Put your tree down in it. Make sure you don't J-root them. Pull it back up a little bit. Take this thing, put it to the side, crimp the dirt back in it, and it's good to go. So a good tree planting tool if you're an active homesteader and got the land and you want to make sure that all your land is good. Now this is good for planting things like pine trees and little small saplings and stuff like that. It's a really good tool to have. Now, a lot of people may not know what this is. This is called a sidewalk edger. You put the edge of the concrete right here, and when you roll it, this thing rolls down beside it and cuts the grass and the weeds off. It's got two blades there that cut together, and you can edge a sidewalk with this just by walking down and just pushing it on the concrete, and it literally chops everything off. Does a fantastic job. A lot of people nowadays have the powered ones with batteries, some of them with gas and stuff like that. But if the economy goes on the blink and you can't get any of that, I have one. We can still do our concrete. We can still keep everything looking nice around the house. Here we have hoes. A lot of people think a hoe is a hoe is a hoe. Well, that's not true. There's a hoe for every purpose in the garden, every purpose in the landscape. The first one we have here, now this one was used way back, Hunter. This one right here goes back to the early 1900s, maybe even earlier than that. This is called a Scoville hoe. This hoe has a round hole in the end of it up here that's tapered. This is a tree I cut down. It's small on this end. It goes down and it gets bigger here. And the further down the hoe goes on it, the tighter it gets. It was made that way so that if people were moving or something like that, they could take and bump this off of here and just carry the metal part with them, and when they got where they were going, they could cut them a new hoe handle. This was used for chopping cotton, different things. My daddy grew and picked a lot of cotton when he was younger. He was a sharecropper whenever they were younger. Their whole family was, and these things they're heavy, but I tell you what, they sure do move some dirt, guys. This is the first kind of hoe. Now this is probably the oldest hoe out there on the market. Now, later in life, after these type hoes went away, they developed what they called the Gooseneck Hoe. Now the Gooseneck Hoe just simply means that on the back of the hoe right here, it makes an arch and comes up and goes down. That's called a gooseneck. Now this particular hoe, this is a really cheap hoe right here. This is a little Walmart brand hoe, or Lowe's, or one of them. Just a little simple, light little hoe made for using just for the little homestead gardener or something like that. That's not planning on doing any kind of heavy work in a field or anything. Then you have a wide hoe. Now this one here is used out in the fields if you're planting vegetables and things like that in a field. You can cover a lot of ground with this hoe because it's pretty wide. And this one is actually, I know it's a gooseneck too, just like that. This one is bent on a slight angle, so because I did it myself, because I'm right-handed, and when I hoe usually facing the right, and as I hoe, it pushes the dirt to the right-hand side because I have it bent. It's much like a plow that goes behind a tractor, a half shovel or something. It's always throwing the dirt out to one side against the plants. I've used this one for probably 30 years in the fields working. Another one would be, now this is a more modern hoe. This is called a batwing hoe. This one here comes from Hoss Tool. It's probably, you would look how tiny it is. You would think, now why would I want that? But let me tell you something. Miss Wanda loves this hoe. I love this hoe. If you're planting with or ground cover and stuff like that, or if you're trying to just get around tiny plants in the garden, this thing, boy, you can get up there, you can move it on its edge a little bit. You can, I mean, it's so tiny, you can move along there, and I mean, you can take out the smallest of weeds with this thing. And it's so easy to sharpen, guys. I mean, made out of good metal, and it too is a gooseneck. It's one of the modern ones. It's got a long handle. That's what I like about it. There's no bending over. You don't really have to bend over to work in the garden, and that's the number one thing for us at our age, is not having to actually bend over. Then you have this one here. This was my mama's. This is called a stirrup hoe. Now it is actually sharp on that side. It is actually sharp on this side over here. This is a push-pull hoe. My mama was old and she didn't have the strength in her arms to do this here. So she would just go out and do this here. Like that right there. It cuts off all the weeds right underneath the surface in the garden. And it allowed my mama to keep gardening even though she was in her 70s. It allowed her to keep being able to go out and work in the garden. Now this is more of a keepsake than it is anything else. I have the actual Hoss tool stirrup hose that I can use with the push plows now. Now you look at this one and you go, what in the world is that? Now, this one here has been used so much. As a matter of fact, we just used it here the other day when I was at the cabin and at the greenhouse. I use it at the greenhouse a lot, and it's made for mixing concrete. You take and put your dry concrete in a wheelbarrow, and you put the water in with it, and when you put the hoe in it and as you pull the hoe through it, the concrete goes through these holes right here, and it allows this hoe to mix the concrete a whole lot better than it would if you just had a shovel trying to turn it over, if you just had a flat shovel or a rake or something trying to drag it through it. This one is actually made to use in that. I've had this thing for probably 15 years, you know, and I know it's still got the stickers on it, but it's one of them things that a lot of my tools stay in the building. They don't stay out in the weather. And the handle here is a joke about this at the hardware store when I bought it. I looked at it, I said, this thing says it has a lifetime warranty on the handle. I said, well, does that mean anything? And the owner of the store looked at me and told me, he says, it don't mean a darn thing at this store. So, lesson learned, just because something says something don't mean it's always ask the owner of the store. But this is a concrete mixing hoe, and it also is a gooseneck. Moving from hoes over to shovels. Now I don't have all my shovels here, I just have a few of them. We have this one here. If you're a small time gardener, you know, you got some raised beds and stuff like that. This shovel right here, believe it or not, was a toy. I saw this in a store, and I looked at it and I said, you know what? I said, I know it's a toy, but I think I could probably use that. And I bought it, and I put this little long handle in it, because it just had a little short handle about that long. And I put this long handle in it here, off of a broom. And now I can take this in the greenhouse. If I'm doing something small, kind of small like that, I don't have to bend over. It's got a long handle on it. It takes care of the little projects that you don't need a big shovel for. So it's actually, it was a toy that was been converted to be able to be used as an adult's tool. You got to always be thinking outside the box. And then we have the old trusty. Now this is a round pointy shovel. Almost every homestead has one of these shovels. These have specific purposes. If you're digging ditches, that it doesn't matter if they're square or round or whatever, this is fine. This shovel is made for digging holes because of the way it's made. It's great for that. You can jump on it, push on it, you dig the dirt up with it. This shovel has its purpose on a homestead made like this. Now this shovel is not made to be used in every place on the homestead. I have another shovel here. This one here. This shovel right here is used for digging foundations, square footings and things like this. I keep mine really sharp on the edges here because I use them for chopping roots and stuff like that. If I'm planting trees or anything like that, this is what I use. I use one of these right here. Now it doesn't have much of a taper to it. It's pretty square across. And a lot of people go, well, I've got a square point shovel. This is a different kind of square point shovel. This one doesn't turn up on the edges. You do not want one that turns up on the edges for digging holes with or anything like that, or trying to scoop out a... Those are made for shoveling stuff like concrete and things like that in wheelbarrows. Things that you need to get a good heavy load of something that got an edge bent up on them. This one is not intended for that. Now I have one that's, I think it's in the greenhouse, or it may be on my front porch right now. It's called a Sharpshooter. It has a long point on it. It goes out really long. I don't have it right here with me, but like I told you, I don't have all my tools right here. It's made for, like if you're going to plant a small tree or something other, that little long sharpshooter, you can punch it down in the ground. Or if you need to just dig a little narrow ditch or trench, that sharpshooter is really good for that. And they make those in all kinds of shapes and sizes. I've seen them with handles as long as this, and the sharpshooter part not being no more than 12 inches long. It's just a little small thing for digging ditches and stuff. Then you have the one that's used in the barn. This is made for scooping manure. You know, or shavings or chips or anything out of horse stalls and things like that. Now, it's not made for digging dirt. It won't work in dirt. Now, if you got loose dirt, you go to hit that dirt, see what it does? It stops. It won't go. But you've got loose shavings like this here, you can slide up under it, and you can pick up a whole big pile of loose shavings like that with it. So it's really good to use, but it only has to be used, it can only be used for what it's made to be used for. Now, because of its size, I bought aluminum with a wooden handle. You can get them in fiberglass or anything like that, but you can get these in steel if you want to try to shovel and hold that big sucker. I mean, I prefer the aluminum. It doesn't rust. It's very light. Then we move over to pitchforks, potato forks, all kinds of forks. I have the old-fashioned hay fork here. Now, there's only 3 prongs on this. Very simply made. Nothing fancy about it. Using it inside the barn, you know, pick up hay with. Won't pick up anything like this. Now, you go to pick up something, it just falls right through it. It's not made for that. It's made to pick up hay and things like that with. Then we have, this is called a seed fork. Now, I have had this thing for, oh my goodness, I don't even know how many years I've had it. Probably getting close to 30 years I've had this. I broke one of the teeth off the outside edge of it. I use it in the barn, in the stalls for cleaning up manure and stuff. You can come down and you can really scoop up some stuff like that, and stuff will fall through it. You can shake it. Like if I'm working in the garden, I'm picking up dirt, I can shake it. And if there's any sticks or anything in it, they lay on the forks here, roots and stuff like that. I can clean out the soil with it. Now this one's a little bit heavy because this is actual heavy steel right here. If you can get these with aluminum, you get them a lot lighter than what they are now. But this is an old-fashioned one I've had for a long, long time. And I mean, you can tell the sticker's still on the handle. I just keep it in the barn ever since I bought it and put the handle in it. Next, my daddy's old potato fork. Now, my dad used this for harvesting his potatoes out of the ground. His Irish potatoes, he would take that thing and stick it in there and pull like that. He'd pull them up, and it really works good. The fingers are really long on it. It's ideal for digging potatoes and stuff like that out of good soft dirt. Just another different type of fork to use. Me, I like to use the regular one here. It's called a potato fork. I really like this one. It's got a short handle. I stay on my knees a lot in the garden because if I'm going to put potatoes in the bucket, I don't want to be bending over. My dad, he would just hoe them up with the big fork. It was up to us kids to put them in the bucket. He didn't put them in the bucket. But I don't have any kids with me now, and I've gotten older. I can get down on my knees with this thing like this right here, and I can, y'all see me in the videos, I can take this thing and just job under the ground, and I mean, I can heel my potatoes up really easy like that. And then when I go to stand up, I got something to hold on to. The older you get, you'll understand that, how important it is. But then I have what's called a regular pitchfork that I use to put hay out for my cows. This one, it's got a long handle. It's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 prongs on it. I've had this one for many years. Just use it specifically for putting hay over inside the feed troughs inside the barn there. The hay troughs where I put the hay in for the cows when I bring like the mamas in when they have their babies and stuff, and I need to keep them in out of the cold weather or something. I can take this on a bale of hay and just run it in there, and I can pick it up, throw it over. See how easy it sticks just through a leaf even, just dropping it down, went through the leaves. Another type of fork Then I have this small one here. This is a tiny little grubbing hoe type fork. It's good for like doing around flower beds and stuff like that. You can really work the soil good with it. I mean, it's really nice. You don't have to worry about hanging up on too many things because it's kind of small. It's easy on the back. It's got a long, now this is a steel handle. We put this one in here, took a piece of conduit and actually made this out of it and welded it all up. There's just times on a Homestead where you need a tiny one. You don't need one as big as the other one here. Then of course, no Homestead is complete without a old handy dandy pair of post hole diggers. Now I've got probably 2 or 3 pairs of these things. This is my newest pair. I just went and bought here probably, I don't know, a year ago. I wore the others out down here to the point where they got so thin that every time I drop them in the ground, hit a rock, they just bend over. So I have to, you know, you can't keep anything forever. You have to, every so often, you have to buy something new. This is a new pair. We use this for putting down posts. Now I do have augers to go on my tractor to auger down holes and stuff like that. But there's places you can't get a tractor. It might be too boggy or might be too tight of a place to get a tractor up in to be able to drill a hole. And you still got to use the old post hole diggers to dig with. This here, some of you probably do or do not know what this is. This is called a Sling Blade. When I was a kid, this is how you mowed the yard. Now I know that may sound silly to a lot of people, but back during the Great Depression, this is what everybody used to mow the yard. If you didn't have a push reel mower, this was the next best thing. You held it in your hand. It's got the right angle on it like this right here, and it's called a Sling Blade. You just sling it from side to side like this, going down through there. Because it's sharp on both sides, it's been sharpened. You can cut grass with it. Lots of people would do that in the Great Depression when the chain gangs would come through town and they would cut the grass in town. The people would go behind them and harvest it for their rabbits and stuff to eat. So I still have the old original Sling Blade. Still got sticker on the handle. This one was bought at an estate sale probably 25, 26 years ago maybe. And I have used it many times on the Homestead here, up around things around the house where I didn't have a push mower or something like that. I could get in here with this and just sling it, and there's no effort in it whatsoever. You just swing it. Another tool. Now this one here's got some spider webs on it because I haven't used this one in a long time. But this, my friends, is the old Garden Rake. It's got a short side and a long side to it. And you can take this thing when you're trying to do the garden. I mean, you can make a nice seed bed with this thing, I'm telling you. You can push it or pull it. It cuts going in both ways because of the way the end of it is made there. And it has a long side. If you need to go down deep, you can go down deep with it. And you can really, like right there, see them roots? It's already pulling up them roots out of the ground. Do a nice seed bed with it. I have other things now to do seed beds with, but I do still have the old original ones to do it with, just in case the power ever goes out and the lights go out, the old saying goes, and LCE happens, or SHTF, whatever you want to call it. I still have the old one, and this one is probably 60 years old or older, and it is still in just as good a shape as it was. Then we've got the old trusty. Now this is what we have today. This is the throwaway yard sweepers. I hate this thing. It's plastic. Everything in the world wants to hang on the edges of it out here. You go to try to rake something. The only thing that's any good for is like if you're raking shavings or something like that. If I was up here raking these shavings, you know, it'll do that all right. Or if I'm going to work in my carrot bed, my carrot beds, I can pull this over the dirt after I get through, and boy, I mean, it'll make a nice, smooth thing in the carrot bed for me to plant my carrots in. But other than that, if you're burning leaves, don't get it close. I've burnt the ends off of them. So them right here, they're all melted off because Danny got it too close to the fire. Now we have the other yard sweeper's not out here. We have one that's metal. It's got the metal steel spring teeth on it. We love that thing. It rakes like crazy, does a fantastic job for raking up leaves and stuff like that. Nowadays, when you get to be my age, I've got a mulcher to go on my lawnmower. I can just mulch the leaves up and then we can just go along behind them. Or in the barn, one of the other tools we're going to talk about in the future is going to be I have a leaf shredder. So you can take these rakes and rake up the leaves, run them through a leaf shredder. Guys, you got the perfect mulch for a garden. This right here, my friends, this is what Wanda and I have fallen in love with. We use this in our garden, in between our ground covers, so we don't have to pull the ground cover up. Our ground cover, we put it down two different ways. Some of them we burn holes in. Some of them we leave a 2 or 3 inch space to plant in between them, like our English peas and stuff like that. And we can take this broad fork and we can go up there and we can slam that thing down like that in between it. And you can step up on it and you can rock that thing back and forth like that right there. And I mean, it just, I ain't even putting no pressure on it. And it's gradually going down in the ground. And then you can just take it and you can pull it back like that. And you can break that ground up. And it's just as soft as it can be afterwards. Now we have a link in the description for these things. A gentleman up north makes these. It's called an Easy Digger. I love it. I literally love it. I think that it's probably one of the better tools that we have here on the homestead. Now you can get these in a lot narrower than this. This is a wider version because that's what I wanted. Now it probably weighs, I don't know, maybe 10 pounds, 9 or 10 pounds. It's not too bad. You can turn the handles come out. They turn to the inside. If you want them to be narrower, you can make them narrower. Or you can leave them out wide. I prefer the wide. Seems to work pretty good for us. But guys, all the teeth on these are replaceable should something happen. You unscrew this bar off right here. You can take one tooth out, you can take them all out. You can make it as narrow as you want it or as wide as you want it. A lot of possibilities with this Easy Digger right here. Guys, this is just a small amount of our tools here. We'll show you in other videos some of the other tools that we have. But the secret to longevity of tools is keep them out of the weather. I mean, that's the best thing, the best advice I can give anybody. You don't know how many people I know, and my daddy was one of the world's worst. He would use a tool in the edge of the garden and he would leave it in the edge of the garden. And then when he went to get it next time, he'd go to use it and the handle would break out of it because the handles had deteriorated. He'd leave them out there all summer leaning up against a tree or something other, raining on them and stuff like that. A lot of my tools, I use linseed oil to go and to put on the handles of everything when I first get them. If they're shellac coated, then I don't put anything on them. But all my tools stay in the barn. And that's probably one of the reasons why my barn stays as cluttered as it is because I have so many tools in there. Next video, hopefully, we're going to get out and show you some more of our hand tools that we use in the garden to actually grow a garden with. A lot of these I've showed you can be used in the garden, like the hoe, the broad fork, things like that. These can all be used in the garden, the shovels to turn the dirt, different things like that. But guys, I've got a ton more different kinds of tools I can show you in other videos about how to grow and maintain a garden, whether you're in a greenhouse, whether you're out in a field, whether you're in raised beds, containers. We have tools for all those things. So I hope today has been a little bit educational. Maybe it's answered a lot of people's questions about asking us so many questions about tools, you know. And yes, in order to be a truly successful independent homesteader who's not dependent on the system, let's say, or gasoline, let's say, or diesel, let's say, and you want to survive without all the new luxuries of the world, you got to have hand tools. And without them, life can just be, it can be difficult. That's why when you see these estate sales, you need to go to them and you need to walk through them. Even if you don't know what a tool is when you see it, Google it on your phone right quick take a picture of it. Some people have those apps where you can actually show you what it is and tell you right quick what it's used for. It might be something that you go like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know I needed that. I mean, I've done that. I've seen things, didn't know what they were until I bought them. And total necessity on the homestead, guys. So maybe today's been a little bit educational and helping you guys out in trying to figure out what tools might work best for where you're at. So we're going to probably close this video off here, and we'll probably do another video in the near future on some more tools. And we're going to eventually work our way up to the gas-powered ones, but we're going to try to stick with the hand-powered ones first before we get to all the new modern conveniences. So, guys, I got to say this. Ms. Wanda, you know what I really need? I need a tool shed. That's one thing I don't have, is a shed for my tools. They're all stuck inside my barn here, in the way all the time. So, probably in the future at some point, there may be a tool shed. Okay?
Y'all knew he could not stop with the she shed. Has to be a man shed.
It's got to be a tool shed somewhere. So we got to start thinking about that. So anyway, guys, we're going to get off of here, and thank you so much for watching us here at Deep South Homestead.